my culture to do that tactfully, because women are often insulted. You know, they feel rejected in that way. So I have to, you know, give an explanation for it, and that is, you know, their first thought is, oh, this is misogynistic. It's against women. So the first thing I point is, you know, if a man tries to hug a nun, it's exactly the same thing. The Bhikkhunis, the original order of nuns, had exactly the same rule, except the genders were reversed in it. So it's not a rule against women. It is just part of the monastic practice to maintain a separation. But even this requires more explanation, because people don't understand it. You know, it's why? Why would you want to do that? So it actually becomes you know, very difficult in the West. So these are kind of the circumstances. Let's see. I've talked. Let's see. One peculiarity of me, which people have accommodated very well, is I'm vegetarian, and also I don't accept money directly. So people can make contributions, but they have to put it on a table or something. And I never touch it, but my kapia can accept it. Now this is consistent with the Vinaya. If somebody wants to make a financial contribution to a monk, a donation, it's usually, monks are actually allowed to only accept material things, food and clothing and medicine and snow boots and a scarf and
weather protection.
Yeah. But you know, a layperson who wants to make a donation is you know, who doesn't know what my needs are, you know, what my later needs might be. You know, maybe I need repair to my computer or something. You know, things come up. The provision that the Buddha made was that, you know, a designated layperson who's a kappiya can accept donations on the money on the monk's behalf. And the kappiya is somebody that has an agreement with the monk that if the monk needs anything, he can ask the kappiya, you know, for it. And so the kappiya can have a fund of money. So this is actually the way the Vinaya. The fact is, the Vinaya specifies, you know, people put money in the envelopes. The monk will not have to touch money. But the Vinaya actually says you can take the money and wrap it in a big wad of blankets and hand it to the monk, and the monk would still be violating the rule. So that's what it says. So you know, the envelope is actually not a protection, but it is a nice thought. So why is it that in the Theravada tradition that is so orthodox in general in obeying the rules, and usually will tend to over enforce the rules? You know, why this particular rule is you know, almost it's understood in Burmese culture that you can give money to a monk in an envelope. It's certainly understood in Mahayana countries that way. And I think the reason is that there is, you know, somebody at some point made concessions to laity, because I notice that I do not, you know, people don't have there's kind of a joy in donating to monks, and monks have an obligation to receive gracefully, and when you simply leave an envelope on the table, you don't have that direct connection. So I think that is kind of what was missing in people's minds. So they make a concession to the rule. Now the rules in general have been adapted over and over again through time according to circumstances. So for instance, the early Winia rules specify that a monk can have at most 3 robes, and that's all the clothes and a belt. And the monks, typically have more than 3 robes. I try not to have more than 3 sets of 2 robes plus the outer robe, which is for cold weather. The fact is that rule could not be maintained when Buddhism went to China. China's too cold. It can also not be maintained in Calgary.
That's true.
We just need more layers. And so the rules are actually, the way they're set up, they're meant to be adapted with time. And what you have with the rules is a statement of the original rule as it's specified, but also an origin story so that you can understand what the intention of the rule was. You also have something called the Great Standards, which are basically a framework in which rules can be adapted or extended to new situations. And so the Winia has actually been very adaptable to new situations. So that what you find, for instance, is that the Winia specified that monks are not allowed to travel in vehicles, which meant at the Buddhist time meant basically ox carts. And there's an origin story about some monks that were, got a hold of an ox cart, and this was the group of 6. They're always the bad monks that show up in the Winia over and over again. They're kind of comical characters, and they're riding an ox cart, and lay people, and that is a luxury at the time of the Buddha. So lay people started complaining that monks are not supposed to be living in such luxury, and so he specified a rule. Now, how do you enforce that rule in modern days? Transportation has a completely different meaning, and the technology is completely different. Monks were allowed to travel by boat, to get across a river or something in the Buddhist time, and so you can look at a bus or an airplane as kind of like a boat. But the cultures have developed in ways that try to observe the rule in the nearest way possible in modern circumstances. So in Burma, a monk would not be seen driving a car. And actually, I understand, cannot even get a driver's license. It's illegal for monks to drive a car in Burma. Is that right? Yeah. And so this is the way it's adapted. As Buddhism comes to the West, I think of kind of like the West as being like Canada or America being kind of the Wild West of Buddhism, because this civilizing force is coming from Asia, and it's basically on the frontier here, and so we live under these adverse circumstances. Often there's not a lay person to drive. So we have a couple of cars at our monastery in Austin, and originally Siddhu Sieto, who's our founder, said, he didn't want the monks to drive in America, and but it's been impossible to enforce. In fact, in our monastery, we have a couple of copyists who live there. We have different lay people that come and go that often drive. But in general, the best 2 drivers at the monastery are me and Ashinati Adama. And so we've become kind of the chauffeurs for everybody else. So we're always going to the airport, picking up somebody, often monks. If there's a layperson available, a layperson will pick up a layperson, but we often, we go out and pick up Seattle if he arrives, or other monks. So these rules, sometimes you're forced to adapt them. The rule for meat is an interesting one, because people don't always know the story. The Buddha permitted monks to eat meat. However, what he did was he put a qualification on that. He said that if a monk hears, sees, or suspects that the meat was killed, the animal was killed in order to feed monks, then the monk cannot accept it. Okay, so that's the rule. And you can see the way I understand the rule is that the rule did not want monks to be implicated in any way in killing animals. They didn't want the monks to be the cause of the killing of an animal. Again, he did not regulate the laity, so there is no rule for the laity around that. However, as with accepting money, he wanted the monks to be available to graciously accept what the laity offered. And often the laity would offer the monks what they were cooking themselves. And so they have a pot of stew or something, but it has meat in it, and a monk goes by, and they should be able to offer some of their meal to the monk if they want to. So the qualification about not suspecting, seeing, or hearing that the meat was specifically killed for monks is a way of making a compromise. So technically monks are allowed to eat meat, but with the qualification. Now the thing is, the rules as they adapt to new circumstances, the meat industry's changed a lot. So in a little village in India, there's no refrigeration or anything, so usually the meat is killed right before it's eaten. So if a family knows that monks are going to come over, they might kill a chicken, and then the monks find out that that chicken was killed because they're coming over. At that point, the monks are not allowed to eat it. It's not a major rule. It's a minor rule. So it's one that a monk could overlook if he wanted to. But now, the monks are coming over, and you think, oh, I'll serve them meat. You don't go out and kill a chicken that's in your backyard. You go down to the store and buy a chicken off the shelf. And so if the monk accepts that, is that a violation of the rule? Well, the meat was not killed, for the purpose of feeding monks, but it was purchased for the purpose of feeding monks. And every time you purchase a chicken off the shelf, somebody has to kill another chicken to replace it. So this is a rule that has generally in Theravada countries not been adapted to modern circumstances. The rule is a monk is not violating the rule as it was originally written, but if we adapted it to modern circumstances, you could say that there's a violation because the monk is being kind of implicated in killing of animals, very indirectly, more indirectly.